In the year 3025, Earth looked very different from how it had been centuries ago. The skies were clearer, thanks to solar domes that floated like gentle clouds above cities and forests. Pollution had long been erased by clever inventions, and most of the Earth's greenery had been revived through a project called the Green Light Biome. This project had turned vast patches of land into living, breathing ecosystems powered by nature and advanced technology working hand in hand. In the heart of one such biome stood a very special forest. Unlike ordinary forests from storybooks of the past, this one was filled with trees that glowed faintly in the dark, their trunks humming softly as microscopic nanobots worked inside them. These trees weren't machines, but they weren't entirely natural either. Scientists had helped them evolve using gentle bioengineering, giving them abilities to adapt to climate change, store clean energy, and even communicate with nearby plants and animals through a low-frequency hum. Among the many amazing plants in the forest stood two trees that couldn't have looked more different from each other. The first was a grand oak tree, towering above all the others. Its bark was thick and layered like armor, and its wide, emerald leaves could absorb sunlight even on the gloomiest days. The oak tree stood with pride. Its roots stretched deep underground, connected to an ancient network of mycelium and sensors that gave it great strength. It believed itself to be the most important tree in the entire forest, and perhaps it was, in terms of size and history. Next to it, standing quietly but glowing with a soft blue light, was the needle tree. It was tall but slim, with thousands of thin needle-like leaves that shimmered when the wind blew through them. It didn't look impressive at first glance. Unlike the oak, it didn't have a thick trunk or wide branches. Instead, its strength was hidden in its flexibility and the advanced nanofibers within its bark. These fibers allowed it to bend without breaking, and to store and release energy in the form of light during nighttime, acting like a natural lantern for the forest creatures. All around them, creatures of the forest buzzed and chirped. Small robotic bees hovered over flowers, pollinating them while collecting solar energy. Colorful birds with smart feathers told time and weather changes with their song patterns. Even the mushrooms on the forest floor could glow softly and send alerts when anything unusual happened. Despite the harmony in the forest, not everything was peaceful between the two trees. The oak tree often looked down both literally and figuratively, and the needle tree, "Look at your skinny trunk," it would say with a deep rumble in its voice. "What can you possibly offer this forest? You look like a bundle of toothpicks." The needle tree never responded with anger. It would simply sway gently in the wind, its leaves whispering songs of patience and peace. What the oak tree didn't know was that the needle tree played a very important role in the balance of the forest. Its needles captured particles from the air and helped stabilize the biome's energy. Its roots were shallower but faster at transferring small electric pulses that kept the forest's data systems running. But the needle tree didn't need to brag. It believed that everything in the forest had a purpose, and it was content with its quiet contributions. As the sun began to set over the biome, the forest slowly lit up like a starry sky. The needle tree glowed gently, offering comfort and light to the smaller creatures gathering near its base. The oak tree stood tall and proud, unaware that soon everything would change and that strength would be measured in a new way. Every morning in the forest of the green light biome began with a soft melody. It wasn't music in the way humans understood it, but rather a gentle vibration, a harmony of natural and technological life humming in perfect balance. The trees, flowers, and even the soil beneath the ground were alive with energy and quiet communication. The robotic bees buzzed into action with the first glint of morning sunlight, while solar butterflies spread their transparent wings to gather. Light birds with holographic feathers sang the data updates of the day, and everything seemed to move in perfect rhythm except for the moods of one particular tree. The oak tree stood tall and proud. As always, towering above most of the forest canopy, it often found itself basking in admiration from passing drones and explorer-bots sent by children from nearby learning hubs. "What a mighty tree," they'd say. "So strong, so ancient." The oak tree loved hearing this praise, even if it wasn't meant for its ears. It assumed everyone else in the forest felt the same way, that it was the most important tree here. Standing a few meters away was the needle tree, slender and sleek. Its frame sparkled under the morning sun. Its needle-like leaves shimmered like strands of silver, and its core pulsed faintly with stored energy from the previous night. The needle tree wasn't as tall or wide as the oak, but it had its own beauty. Quiet and radiant in a way the oak tree didn't fully understand. But rather than admire the needle tree's quiet strength, the oak chose to mock it. "Good morning, little branch pile," the oak tree boomed, shaking its massive limbs. "Did a gust of wind wake you up again? Be careful, or you might float away." The needle tree swayed slightly, not out of offense, but simply with the breeze. It didn't react with irritation or reply with harsh words. It had heard these jabs before. The oak tree had a habit of making fun of anything it didn't understand. To the oak, size meant strength, width meant wisdom. and volume meant value. You know, continued the oak, its leaves rustling loudly as a squirrel bot dashed up its trunk. If they ever build a monument for forest greatness, it will be modeled after me. Not you, and your tiny lights and pokey needles. The forest creatures nearby paused briefly, noticing the oak tree's loud voice again. Some of them, like the solar beetles and floating pollen bots, preferred the calm energy near the needle tree where they could rest, recharge, and quietly go about their duties. But the oak tree barely noticed them. The needle tree finally spoke, its voice soft, like a breeze through glass chimes. Size is not everything, friend. We all contribute differently. Differently, please, laughed the oak tree. You barely provide shade. Your roots don't even go deep, and your bark so thin and flexible. How can anyone rely on you in tough times? The needle tree didn't answer, but deep within its trunk, its energy modules continued working, filtering data from the environment, sending electric signals through the soil, and balancing the biome's temperature with high-efficiency absorption. Every needle captured air particles and microscopic radiation, cleaning the biome slowly and steadily, like a silent guardian. The other trees, the vines, and even the mushrooms knew of the needle tree's contribution. They didn't speak, but their systems vibrated in appreciation. Still, the oak tree refused to see it. As the sun rose higher, its rays bounced off the needle tree's silver tips, lighting up the forest in a way the oak's heavy canopy never could. But the oak tree remained convinced of its superiority. Little did it know, the balance of the forest depended not on its wide branches or deep roots, but on the quiet strength of the one it mocked. A lesson it would soon learn, when the skies no longer remained blue and calm. Far above the green light biome, beyond the calm skies and the floating solar domes, a disturbance began to ripple through space. Scientists aboard Sky Station 11, a research satellite orbiting Earth, were the first to detect it. A rare and powerful cosmic storm was approaching, an unstable wave of electromagnetic radiation traveling from deep space, strong enough to disrupt electrical systems, communication satellites, and even the sensitive ecosystems of Earth's biomes. The signal was quickly relayed to every biome control center on the planet, including the one managing the forest where the oak tree and needle tree lived. Down in the forest, the peaceful hum of the biome systems suddenly shifted in tone. The birds that usually chirped cheerful melodies began to sing in a faster, more urgent pattern, sign that something unusual was coming. The robotic bees returned to their hives early. Solar butterflies folded their wings and tucked themselves into safe crevices beneath leaves and bark. The entire forest, which had operated like a harmonious orchestra, was now preparing for the unknown. The biome's central AI activated emergency protocols. A gentle, robotic voice echoed softly through the trees. Warning, electromagnetic storm approaching. Shield protocols activating. High exposure species, take cover. The oak tree, with its wide branches stretched out like sails, shook slightly in the rising wind. A storm? It rumbled, laughing. I've weathered hundreds of storms. This forest was practically built around me. Nearby, the needle tree felt the change in the atmosphere. Its sensors picked up the electric tension in the air, the irregular pulse of magnetic fields, and the rising radiation levels. The soft glow at the base of its trunk brightened as it began to adjust its internal circuits. Its thin, silvery needles started folding inward like a self-protective shield, distributing charge safely across its body. It's not a regular storm, the needle tree said quietly. This one is different. Oh please, scoffed the oak. Don't tell me you're scared. With all your wires and blinking lights, I thought you'd be immune to this sort of thing. I'm not scared, replied the needle tree, but we must prepare. This storm is strong enough to disrupt the biome systems, and it could damage everything if we're not careful. Still, the oak tree stood in agony. Once a symbol of pride and power, it now looked scorched and weary. The initial bolt that struck it had left a blackened scar down its thick trunk. Several of its grand limbs, once spread like arms in triumph, now drooped, split, and lifeless. Smoke curled from its bark. The very sensors woven into its wood had overloaded, leaving it confused and blind to the forest's energy signals. Every time another surge of radiation passed through the air, the oak would shudder, unable to adapt. Nearby, the needle tree remained upright, glowing brighter with each passing moment. Its narrow trunk and flexible structure allowed it to bend with the wind instead of fighting against it. The nanofibers in its bark responded rapidly, absorbing bursts of energy and redistributing them safely into the ground. From a distance, it looked almost magical, its glowing needles swaying, pulsing softly in hues of blue and green. A calm beacon amidst chaos. Under the needle tree's canopy, dozens of forest creatures had taken refuge. Robotic bees huddled beneath its low-hanging branches. Small data birds, their wings fluttering weakly, perched in the hollows of its trunk, recharging on stored light. Even crawling beetles and gliding moths gathered in its soft roots, which radiated just enough warmth to protect them from the biting cold created by the storm's vacuum pockets. The needle tree didn't just survive it, protected. All around, other parts of the biome had gone dark. The solar dome had lost over half its power, flickering like a candle about to go out. Emergency lights installed on the biome's boundary. Fences blinked erratically, and the controlled drones overhead had retreated to their charging stations. The forest's survival now depended not on technology alone, but on the life forms inside it. The oak tree groaned as another branch cracked and fell with a heavy thud. A group of vine rats, tiny AI-enhanced rodents, scattered away from the impact. The oak finally called out, not with pride, but with fear. "Needle tree, help me," it whispered. The words took effort. The oak's voice, once booming and full of confidence, now trembled like an old system low on power. There was no longer any mockery, only realization and regret. The needle tree didn't hesitate. Its internal sensors detected the failing structure of the oak and the overheating roots. It extended its energy field, a soft bioelectrical pulse, toward the oak tree. Though their roots didn't normally intertwine, the needle tree redirected part of its stored light through the soil, allowing the oak to slowly stabilize its root temperature. It couldn't repair the damage, but it could prevent more loss. "You're not weak," the oak said slowly, with pain, but also wonder. "You're built differently. I didn't see it before." The needle tree simply replied, "We all have a role. Mine is just quieter." The storm continued for another hour, each wave less violent than the last. And throughout it all, the needle tree stood firm, bending when necessary, glowing when needed. The forest, held together not by size or strength, but by wisdom and adaptability, endured. As the storm began to fade, a faint dawn light broke through the thinning clouds, casting a soft golden hue over the battered but living forest. And for the first time, the oak tree looked at its slender neighbor, not with disdain but with deep respect. The morning after the storm arrived, like a whisper, soft, hesitant, and full of promise. Light filtered gently through the damaged solar dome overhead, casting a pale glow across the forest floor. The air smelled of ozone and damp bark, mingled with a strange electric freshness that followed powerful energy storms. Silence lingered, as if the forest was still catching its breath. Birds cautiously began to chirp again, their digital feathers shimmering as their circuits reset. Robotic bees buzzed low and slow, their wings pulsing as they warmed up in the soft light. Solar butterflies, having tucked themselves away through the long night, slowly unfolded their wings to test the skies. The biome was waking up, but not everything was the same. The oak tree stood in quiet reflection. Its once mighty branches were broken in places. Its bark darkened with storm burns. Some of its leaves had fallen like tears, scattered across the forest floor. The tree still stood tall, but now there was a wariness in its frame. No longer proud or boastful, the oak tree felt something new: humility. Across from it, the needle tree stood as gracefully as ever. Though its needles were scattered with dew and faint scorch marks, it pulsed with gentle light. Its bark had bent, absorbed, and redirected the worst of the storm's energy. The forest creatures that had taken shelter beneath it now emerged, safe and warm. A family of glider squirrels chattered excitedly as they played near its roots. Even the smallest moss drones clung to its base, collecting and redistributing microenergy. The oak tree watched silently as this all unfolded. For so long, it had viewed the needle tree as weak, strange, even unimportant. But now, after seeing how it had protected the forest, how it had bent without breaking, how it had shared its energy without hesitation, the oak understood something it never had before. "You saved them," the oak tree said finally, its voice low but filled with awe. "You saved us." The needle tree didn't glow brighter with pride or respond with smugness. It simply whispered, "We all do what we can. Some of us are strong in silence." The oak tree nodded, feeling a shift inside itself, not just in its systems, but in its understanding. "I was wrong," it admitted. "I thought strength was only in size, in being the tallest, the loudest. But strength is in kindness too, in giving without asking for anything back." For the first time, the two trees connected their energy signals. A low-frequency pulse passed through the ground between them, a respectful link of understanding. Their roots, once separate, now shared information, nutrients, data, support. The forest felt it too. A new balance was forming. Later that day, the biome's AI reactivated fully and began scanning the forest for damage. Tiny repair bots flew overhead, buzzing around to assess broken limbs and singed leaves. A group of child explorers watched through their virtual forest window from a nearby learning station. They had seen the storm through live feeds, and they marveled at the trees that had survived. One girl pointed to the needle tree and said, "That one glows. It's beautiful." Another boy added, "Yeah, but the big one stood tall through everything." They both helped. The AI chimed in gently. Every element in the forest has a purpose. Just as the oak gives strength and stability, the needle tree offers light and resilience. Together, they create balance. The forest healed slowly over the next few days. Leaves regrew, systems rebooted, and the natural harmony returned stronger, wiser. From that day on, the oak never mocked the needle tree again. Instead, it listened, learned, and began to share its own strength more thoughtfully. The two trees once divided by pride and misunderstanding now stood side by side in true partnership, and in the heart of the biome, the whisper of the forest sang a new tune, one of unity, respect, and the quiet, powerful wisdom of knowing we are all different and all essential.